welcome to Beauties and Beasties, the independent pest podcast for the UK.
Hello. How are you all doing?
Right, mate. You? Fair enough.
I'm doing very good. Yes. Had a week. It's not Friday. I can't believe it's Friday. I mean, I don't know what I genuinely had a meeting today at 1 o'clock. And in my head, I was like, how can this be my Friday meeting at 1 o'clock when I have, a whole 4 days left of the week? This is unreal. It's just flown by. And April's almost gone as well. I think, what the hell's happened? This is not right.
You know what it is?
No.
You're getting older, mate.
Oh, no, I'm not old. Well, I will be actually on Monday coming. I think it's Monday. Well, next week is my birthday.
Happy
Would you
birthday.
believe?
Talking about birthdays, next Friday is the news again, the pest control news for us. And actually, it's our 150th episode. Who would have guessed?
Oh, not me. I mean, that is, like, no. How have we been doing this?
No idea. How can we get, how could we continue? But yeah, it's 150.
I don't know. I'm quite proud of that. Hang on, I've just created a little poll just to see what people are doing. Just for fun, guys. While we warm up, how old do you think I'm going to be on next Monday? Looking at how I'm doing, and
looking sleek.
Looking sleek, and also the fact that I literally just had an old man rant about it being Friday. So there we go. Anyway, Hugh, what have you been up to this week? What's been the highs of your week so far?
What have we done? We've been bed bugging. Well, I haven't, but the chaps have been bed bugging again. That's been mainly about it. We've been squirreling and bed bugging, and I've learned a couple lessons this week, but I'll keep couple of those to next week, to the news. 55. Fucking hell. 52.
There are some people who have literally fallen off my Christmas card list.
I'm gonna say they might not be friends for much longer, some of them.
That's it. Anonymous LinkedIn user, thank you very much for being reasonable.
Somebody asked, is there any chance of putting all the past episodes on YouTube? No, you'll have to go to Spotify. They're all on Spotify, and it's all free on Spotify. You don't have to do anything. I'm not being a miserable curmudgeon, but it's just a lot of, well, I am. It's quite a lot of effort to put them all back up again. So unfortunately, they should to be honest, they should all nearly be all there, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, it's Sean's thing. So unless he's gone and deleted them like some kind of Herbert, then it should be fine.
I think they're all there. To be honest, you just got to go a little bit of searching, I think.
I mean, so YouTube is the second most popular search engine after Google by all accounts. But I hate its interface. I don't know if it's just me, but you can find like one video you like, and then if you want to watch a second video, it's easier to turn the entire page off and go through again. It's really difficult to look at concurrent videos from the same author and same user. It always tries to funnel you away to other content,
to other shite.
The same thing. Other shite. But there we go. Hang on, bud. So you've got Sean with us, but not with us. He says they're all on my Cure Line page, so go find that. I'm sure he's going to put a link into the comments momentarily.
And
but there we go.
Steve has said that they are on YouTube on the live link tab. So they are there. So you can catch up on there. But you know, if you listen on Spotify, you can fire it up. You can listen to it in the van in the morning on the way to work. And you know, you don't have to listen to us blithering in a whole great big long chunk of an hour and a half. You can cut it up in little sections.
I feel like I'm just being targeted right now. LinkedIn user says, now you're showing your age, you should just go to the playlist. Well, you should go to the playlist.
So you can give people a clue here.
Yeah.
So when it was school holidays, you remember school?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah. Can you remember sitting down and watching the TV on school holiday mornings? What was the shows that you were watching?
Right. I'm going to be honest with you. I was a feral child. I grew up in a little village that was in the middle of the woods, and I had a push bike and a can-do attitude. So summer holidays, I spent very little time at home in front of the telly. As soon as the summer holidays hit, I was out on a bike. I used to be a scout as well. So I'd go out there with a little trench with a little sort of trench trowel, trench spade, and a can-do attitude with my mates, and we'd go and make dirt bike jumps. And how I haven't had more broken bones and severed limbs is quite beyond me. But I wouldn't be able to tell you what was on the telly box when I was on summer holidays. If it was light outside, I was on a bike, and being feral is the only way to describe it.
So
causing trouble.
Everybody put in the comments what their favorite TV program was on school holidays, and I bet you Terry Ashley puts Champion the Wonder Horse.
Oh, good man! I mean,
Champion the Wonder Horse.
No. Oh, that was unnecessary. Didn't need that. Right. What else? I mean, I was about to say, you look like you've had a haircut as well. Like you're looking very trim.
Who?
Is that you?
Me?
No, there's something different. You either had a haircut. I don't know. It's the Beauties
haircut. I haven't got any flicking hair.
Wait, you look like you've literally the Beauties and Beasties is shining. I mean, it's coming in.
On my head.
Right. Yeah. I just need to divert attention. Right.
Oh, I did say, didn't I? There you go. Oh, hang on. Follyfoot and Black Beauty. Robinson Crusoe. Flashing Blade. You've got to fight for what you want and all that you believe.
How have we got to this point in the show where you are singing theme tunes of songs?
No idea. Raggy Dolls.
I don't know how we've got here at all. Everyone's loving it though. Davey Brown.
He-Man. By the power of Grayskull.
Right. Shall we get on with the show proper? And
yes.
Bring our guest on. Right.
I think that probably might actually be a very good idea.
Okie dokie. Well, I will bring him on if you give him an introduction. So welcome to the stage.
Welcome to the stage. And we've got Jacob from Atlas. I'm not going to say your second name, Jacob, in case I get it actually wrong. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be cool.
I am Jacob Sidorewic, Managing Director from Atlas Environmental Services.
I would have got it wrong.
It's originally from Belarus.
Oh,
so that explains the pronunciation of it then.
Exactly.
So there we go. Jacob, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on. Do you want to just tell everyone a little bit about who you are, and not necessarily about what you do, we'll get onto that in a minute, but how you got to be in the position that you are now? I mean, did you always want to be a pest controller? Or like me, did you like to ride bikes and disappear off as a feral child?
So, firstly, happy birthday for Monday, and mine's on Tuesday.
Excellent.
So, very similar. So yeah, like yourself, I was holidays, etc. I was never into gaming. I was always outside playing football, like yourself, BMXing, jumps, everything, climbing trees. So I've always been an adventurous kind of guy growing up. So I've been in the industry for around 12 years now. My dad, obviously, we're a family-run business. My dad goes back to the days where he worked for Rentokil in London many years ago. And then he was working for a company up north. And I was actually working in a supermarket. I was working in Lidl, and a national company was in there. I won't say which one. And they had a mouse infestation, and I'm checking. and I'm going around the store and I'm looking and I'm finding the nests and I'm looking and I'm messaging my dad saying, is this trap right? Is this trap right? And he's like, no, he's put the trap wrong. And so I was very intrigued at that. And then I remember coming into my shift one time and there was about 5 grown blokes and they've like got a load of boards around about 5 mice and they're all stood there, some big guys, and they're like, what do we do? What do we do? And I'm like, look, you've just got to put them out of misery. And so I jumped in and obviously I dispatched them. And a job come up at that company and I never looked back. I love the industry. I've done many jobs and I find this industry so fascinating. Every single day there's no day like it. You know, you never know what's involved. And hence why I'm in the industry and we started our own business, and I've never looked back, and we're thriving.
So hang on, your dad was a pest controller before you, working for Rentokil.
Yep.
Then you got a job with Rentokil.
No, I got a job with a different company. So my dad did Rentokil in London. Many years ago, I think when he would have been early 20s. And then obviously my dad's from down south, so I was born in southeast London. We've moved to Burnley, I think around 23 years ago, I'd like to say. So my dad then went to work for a company locally to ourselves, and I think he did around 14 years there. And I got a job with that company, not with Rentokil.
And they are called?
Harvey Environmental.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So then at some stage, so you both worked for Harvey Environmental at the same time?
Yes, we did.
And then at some stage, you both came together and said, maybe, or one had the idea or both had the idea?
To be honest, my dad retired. I was working there. I come out the industry for a while. I went back into factory work. I did about 18 months out of there, and my dad retired. He retired from the industry. He says, look, that's enough for me. His phone kept ringing. You know, people knew us. People were ringing me domestic wise at that time saying, I've got a rat in my house. Can you sort it? So I got back into it, and then I looked and I remember going home to my wife and I said, we need to start a business. Let's do it. And I weren't on Facebook at that time. She wasn't on Facebook, and we started a Facebook page. Within a few days, wasps come in, wrap jobs, reviews, and it was just it's the fairy tale ending for me. Well, it's not ending, but it's just how it progressed. It just went from strength to strength. We got an accountant pretty sharpish. I remember the accountant coming round and just thinking we was just the odd little rat man going to visit people's houses, and it's just I guess what you put in is what you get out, isn't it? You know, I'm always hungry in life. I'm determined, and I've got goals and aspirations, and obviously the accountant, before we was even earning enough money, etc., the accountant advised us to go VAT registered, you know, so we can claim back, etc. And we're like, well, we're not on the 80,000 threshold. It's like VAT registered, limited company. You know, you can go and approach big companies then, and it's still progressing today.
It's interesting you said you got VAT registered early on, because when I was doing my consultancy, the first job I picked up, was for a fairly large company, no names mentioned. And I did the job, and I was really pleased because it was the first job on the first day. And I was like, oh, I've already made sort of like my month's earning in a day as a consultant. I've really made it. And then they refused to pay me because they're like, oh, actually, I mean, I'd done the job. I'd gone and done the survey, I'd written the report, I'd handed it all over, I'd given them the invoice. And they're like, oh, sorry, we can't work with anyone that's not VAT registered.
Yeah.
What the hell? Okay, so I had to sort of like write a new invoice, you know, with the VAT on it, and then instantly become, so the very first job I ever did as a consultant, VAT, and then onwards from there it was that. But it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because actually it a lot of the larger companies, don't they only see, you know, they measure success of your business and of you if you're VAT registered or not, regardless of the fact as it's just filling out one form. Usually you don't even do it yourself, it's your accountant, and that's it. And then you just add it on, and it's just neither here nor there because you are middle of the chain. You spend as much as you make. So it's mad, isn't it?
Don't get me wrong, I hate the VAT bill on the quarterly basis when it comes through, but you know, it's life.
Horrible.
You just got to remember that when you put that, sorry, you go.
Sorry, I was going to say, when you first started then on your own, did you sort of have a plan to be where you are now, or did you just think, I'll start on my own, if I can get enough money and enough wage for myself and my family, that's enough, that's where I want to be? Or did you actually think, no, I want to be there, where you are now?
Well, I've always had dreams and aspirations, and so to be successful and continue has always been a dream. However, I didn't think at the start that would be possible. If I was sat where I am today, and you asked me that 7-8 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that. But I was very happy at the start of, you know, when we started the business, I still worked in a factory. So I didn't take any wage from Atlas Environmental. All the wage my wage was from the factory, and I was on continental shifts, working 7/7s in the morning, 7/7s till night, going out trying to source clients. And then finally, until we had enough clients on board, then obviously I handed my resignation into to the factory. And I was happy. I had a steady little wage coming in to pay the bills. You know, I was working for myself. My dad, he's successful. He doesn't take out the business. So it was just to see his son progress. And I was happy of just doing that. But then obviously the more accounts you get, you know, you can't do it on your own. And to take that next leap then to employ someone, it was a tough decision, you know, because it wasn't what I thought of originally. But then when Simon from the Pest magazine come to see us, you know, as business started growing, I thought, hold on, you know, we can do this. And so I've still got it today. And my aspiration is to have 10 service vehicles on the road. And that's what I'm trying to achieve.
So here's a question for you. A lot of time people talk about when is the right time to is that what you were going to ask as well?
It was. Yeah.
It was. Yeah, there we go. Great minds, eh? But you know, people wonder what's the best time to take on that first employee, and you know, people think, well, I'll build up the work, and then I know that there's a work for the person. Or the other school of thought is, I'll take them on, and the work will find itself. I will have them, and I will find the work. I mean, what was it for you? What was that moment of, I'm now ready for another person? What was the thought process there? Because lots of folks here constantly talk about a second member or third member of their team. How did you get through that?
Well, we was just inundated because obviously we love our commercial work. Commercial work for us is bread and butter. You know, we love to visit the sites continuously, and the commercial work was just flowing and flowing and flowing. And we hit some quite a big accounts that come on board with us. So it was like, for me, I have to keep up that superior servicing, but I can't neglect it. So if I've got all these jobs in my day, in my week, I can't neglect them sites. And it come to the point of, I remember sitting down with my dad and my wife and sitting there saying, I think it's time we need to employ someone. And it was one, to take a bit of stress off me, because it was like I was working probably 6-7 days a week, call outs, follow-ups. And so from having, I guess, not quiet life, but a steady life, pottering around, doing your sites, pulling a wage in, to then going back to working every hour. And then obviously there's so much more, as you guys know, that goes with it, the invoicing, the schedule of sites, everything. So the leap of faith for us, first of all, to get our first technician, it was daunting, I must say. I'd never employed anyone. We have to get the right technician, someone that wants to work for us, someone that's up to our standards. But I must say, when I look back, it was the best move that we could have made, and to progress the company. It was either stay stationary and just be happy with what we've got, and turn work down, or grow and expand the business. So that leap of faith, like I said, it was daunting, but I knew it was the right one. The time had come. I looked at not the books or not the figures, it was the amount of accounts that was continuously coming in. And obviously we don't want to turn work down. So it was a fantastic move for ourselves, that one.
So it's very hard, isn't it? Because like you said, you want to keep that standard up, and you want to chase that new work. And on the same hand, it's very easy to forget the work that you've already got, and let that slide, because you want the next big account and the next big account. And then you forget those customers that have been with you for 26 years or whatever, because you want the next one. So that really is quite difficult. And once you took somebody on, did you find it easier to then get work because you had that opportunity for them to, whereas before you may have turned around and said, sorry, love, we can't fit you in, or sorry, mate, no, can't get there. But then once you've got somebody, you can say, yeah, we can get somebody to you, and that snowballed from there.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously my work patch that I had, obviously I split that in half, and then new calls come in, and we were able to jump on them straight away and say, we'll set your site up in 2 days' time. Obviously, as well, to keep things ticking over, then we would start doing a few domestic work, start taking a few of them in just to fill the gaps up. So yeah, that's what we needed. It fits in perfectly. I mean, like, where we've currently got, obviously, we've got 5 vans now. One sits in the stores, nice and proud, that's absolutely pristine, just ready for our new guy and stuff. And we love that. I walk into the stores and it's just polished and everything's there, and it's not been out since I've done that. But then obviously then we took our second technician on, Rob, and then we took Leon. And each time, I take someone on and I see the patches, they get small, and I look and I think, well, I'm paying these guys a decent wage, but then there might only be 12 calls on that week. And I think we need to fill them up, but then we're able to then geographically relocate the patches and then go and source more work. And it also frees myself up and my dad up to then go and knock on doors, because if I'm out servicing nearly 24/7, then I've not got time to go and introduce myself at big sites and get the foot in the door, and I kind of found that again of when we had 2 technicians and myself and obviously my dad, and I'm out there working, I need that time to go and introduce and get these sites in, because otherwise then you're just servicing, and I remember speaking to one of our accounts, and I used to go in there, and he's a crude businessman, and he said to me, there's a difference, Jacob, of running the business and managing the business. And he said, and you're only running it. And I remember standing there going, no, I'm managing it as well. And he said, no, you are running your business. You are not managing it. And that took a bit to sink in. That I left that site and I felt a bit disheartened. I'm like, does he not know what I do? But then there's so much, as you guys know, that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just that we're just sat at home doing everything. It's planning, it's scheduling, it's everything. So, yeah, it was the best move that we made to employ people. 100%, definitely.
So I have two questions, like one question and a follow-up question. So let's go this. So of course, you know, you're not just a standard pest management servicing company, are you? You have a very specific, I wouldn't say niche, but you have a direction, which is, well, I'll let you explain that, and then the follow-up question will make sense. So, I mean, what is your specialism, would you say, for Atlas?
Audited sites, 100%. We love our BRCGS audited sites, AIB, SALSA accredited. I had a very good upbringing and understanding of my previous employment, you know, and I was kind of, I would say I was thrown in at the deep end when I started out as a technician to go and service these sites. So I had a good understanding of how everything is, that they are the majority of the sites that we try and approach and try and continuously grow on that. But yeah, I mean, we stay away from domestic properties quite frequently. There's, you know, we can walk into any site at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock at night, and they're still open. You know, there's so many times where we've scheduled visits in at domestic properties and we're in Preston and we've come back to Burnley and they've said, I'm at the dentist or I'm walking the dog. You know, it's so frustrating when you're trying to run that business.
So my follow-up with that is so you speak to a lot of you know, of the service companies. I've spoken to the technical leads and I've spoken to the trainers. And one of the biggest things, the biggest complaints I always say is when you start off and when you've got the business and you are especially dealing with high profile cases, you work to your own standard and you are culpable and, you know, capable of your own standard. And so you know what you're doing. But the second you take someone on, or a third person, the more people you take on, the less visibility you have over the standards on that site. Yeah. And therefore, if you are dealing with very high standards, but also, you know, entrusting others to have that same level of diligence and, you know, forthrightness with them, how do you manage that as an employer without necessarily micromanaging your team and double checking everything and looking at them under a microscope, because that would be shit, let's be fair. How do you do it? How do you strive that balance?
Well, I mean, for us, it's about getting the right employees from day one of, you know, a decent interview process. Do they understand our, you know, I have OCD, everything has to be pristine. You know, I can drive people insane, my wife, my dad, you know, the back of my van is...
I have noticed.
and
even from your adverts, everything's like straight line, straight line. You know, like that's just from LinkedIn, straight line.
But that's not. But it's a really good aspect to have. But
yeah,
obviously quality assurance checks. You know, going out and doing a QA, making sure the site's up to good standard. You know, we manage our work because, you know, I don't have the guys out there absolutely overworked, because I don't believe that you should overwork someone and send someone onto 12 sites per day, you know, because I see it on, I see other companies, you know, 12 supermarkets per day. You know, a supermarket would probably take us 4 hours to check in depth, you know, and we're not a tick box company that goes in, does a report, said everything's all right. So for us, our guys are not overworked, and they know that if they was on site and say a 45-minute call takes them an hour and a half because they've deep cleaned all the traps, they've deep cleaned the boxes, they've replaced boxes, where we don't mind that. Our guys aren't on trackers and we don't bring them at start, they're left to manage their patch. And I guess for the trustworthy of that is that they really respect us as employees and they think, I really enjoy working for this company. You know, they know our standards are very high, but then obviously when I'm out on site with them and we're teaching them, because we always like to teach within, you know, there's not been one point at the moment that where we've actually recruited someone that's RSPH level 2 trained. we've taught them in-house, got them through the certification, and they know our standards from day one. So I guess for them, if we teach them from day one of this is what we expect, this is what that's all that they know, and there's no dirty habits there that they pick up and go, oh, well, I won't do that. But I guess for me, it comes down to them guys not being superly overworked. You know, they have got time to make sure it's right. And then obviously when the work continues and then the patches, you know, more accounts come on board, that's when we then introduce another technician, and then their workload goes again. So I guess it's from day one of teaching them our standards and not overworking them, you know, for me, because if you're going to rush someone, then the mistakes are going to generally happen.
Do you think that a lot of smaller companies are put off by doing BRC sites and other audited sites? Because really the thing is, it's actually in the specifications, so you shouldn't really be able to get it wrong. You've actually got the you know, what we want is written on a piece of paper. So as long as you're following that, it's actually easier than other sites in a way. Do you think that's correct or no?
It's a tough one because obviously, like I said before, I've got really good experience of, you know, trend analysis, patterns, and all the documentation side of what's to be expected. But with my OCD, I then implement that on the client's files and the portal, you know. So like the MPTA certification only, you know, what date are we on now? 17th. You know, the certification run out on the 15th of April. Ours were already in our client portals on when we got issued it on the 5th of April. So I guess it's all right doing the physical side, but a lot of it is the documentation side as well, of having that knowledge of, you know, because we do see it out there of the non-conformances. So the folder might be all right, but then when you actually do the in-depth site survey and you walk around and you see the physical work, you look and think, how's that passed an audit with that? You know, monitor points missing, labels missing, not inspected, no fliculars dated service, not retubed. The corner shop's a lot easier, don't get me wrong, but I mean it's from a management point of view, you know, there's a lot more pressure and stress on myself as in going to service it. And I always say to the guys that are out there servicing for us, the best job in this industry is going out servicing, meeting the clients, going to job, enjoying the weather. The worst bit sometimes can be sat in this office for 8 hours and not seeing anyone. It's all documentation. But it's, there's a lot that goes with it. You know, you've got to get it right, because the last thing you want to do is promise the world or get that new account, and then they're on, I don't know, an AA+ accreditation unannounced or something, and then they come to you, whether it's price, whether it's service, and then they drop to a B, and then that's on you. You know, so there's a lot of pressure on there when they have an audit. I mean, luckily for us, we've never had a client ring us up and say, there's been non-conformances here, this is wrong, why is this not done? They've never got to chase us. Everything is just put there for them prior to that. But I guess that's organisation then, isn't it?
So, and you bring up a good point here, which is you are running audited sites. So, of course, at some point you are going to be audited. Now, you have nominally within our industry, there are two levels to this audit, aren't there? There is the external auditor, which is the BRCGS, you know, auditor coming in there, but also you have your field biologist, which is like the internal industry checks and measures. Now the thing is that, so two questions. Number one, do you FB audit yourself, or do you bring in a third party?
We do that. We do it ourselves.
Okay, that kind of puts the kibosh on question two, because those who sort of like bring in a third party, and it'd be interesting to have your view on this. With that, when you bring in a third party auditor, who should pay for it? Because I know a lot of pest management companies don't want the faff of bringing in, FB, paying for it, and then passing that bill on. They'd much rather actually the site, organized the FB, bought it in, paid for them, and the rest of it. But therein lies the rub, because if you get the site to bring in the FB, who gets to look at the report first, which is exactly as you said there? Who gets to see when something's going to start to go wrong? So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you as well, Hugh, because of course I know you guys do a lot of audited sites. Who should carry the responsibility of organizing the FB and, doing all of that?
We're like Jacob, we do our own as well.
I would personally say it would be for the pest management company to either source the cost or do it yourself. Obviously in the service specification, it's X amount of visits, but either 2 senior visits, field biologist visits, or 4 per annum. And for us, there's a lot of trust between our clients, because they know that we go there, they know they do it right. And then, would they want someone else coming in that they don't know physically, possibly picking up the slightest thing or going over the top, because sometimes I've spoke to guys at other companies, and the clients cannot stand their field biologist guy comes in because he just rips them to death. They haven't got time prior to their audit. So for me, it's about liaising with the client. The client pays our wages at the end of the day, and they ensure that our company ticks over. And I believe to work with them, sometimes, if there's a rip in a strip curtain, I think it's a bit politer to have a chat to them on the side and say, can you get that strip curtain fixed for our next visit, please? And they go, yeah, as opposed to, right, I'm documenting that, I'm putting a picture down. And there becomes a bit of your issue of the client falling out with your company then.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Is there an element, therefore, of bias if you are to audit yourself? And I'm just asking, how do you stop that creeping in? Because as an external observer having a look in, let's say you are the main auditor looking for that AA, saying, right, actually, is their FB going a little bit soft on this because they are auditing their own, they're auditing their own colleagues? Obviously, they're not going to sort of go as hard as a third-party auditor or someone brought in from the outside. So how do you maintain that level of standard and proof, basically? Because there's a lot of folks here that probably really love to be able to audit their own sites and the rest of it. So how do you achieve that level of independence, let's say?
Well, I mean, we always say to our clients on our audited sites, if there's any time you want to walk around with ourselves and you want to come round and while we're on site, come and have a look at any monitor points, have a walk around to see what we do, feel free. We'll always open any single box in front of you, whether it's an external monitor, fly catchment tray, internal box, documentation side. We're very open with that. If a client wants a key to the monitor points, we're absolutely happy because we don't have anything to hide there. But we always work as though while we're servicing, we need to service because to this standard, to expect a competitor or someone else to walk in behind us. And what we'd like then to do is we know that we've left that site absolutely pristine. The only 6 weeks later, 4 weeks later, another company can come in, they can open our monitor points, and we know that they'll think that we've only been in a week ago because they're absolutely pristine and serviced correctly. And that's how we tend to come in, always expect, and it's like I say to my dad, and what could they say? Oh, we'll take over the account. There's nothing wrong with the work, but we'll knock you 400 quid per annum off. The client's going to stay with us. It's not about costs. I get the bias side, but then if something is wrong, I don't actually mind then saying, I will highlight it. But we always ensure there's no proofing defects. On every single audited inspection, we go around. If there's any defects, we'll be there. We'll rectify them. So we make sure that if someone comes in behind us, then because it happens and they knock on the door and they come round, then there's going to be no hidden surprises for our clients.
Again, I mean, I'm not to sort of like roll over here, because I mean, Hugh's obviously got bits and bobs to say as well. But you mentioned there that sort of like even when people come in and they try to undercut you on price, the value that you provide is, you know, more than the cost that you are, you know, that they might save in monetary terms. That is a big thing for me, and I think that's a big thing for the industry, and I think a lot of people don't understand that by doing less you can charge more. By giving, you know, that extra effort, you genuinely can get away with charging a premium there, which not only is the client happy to engage with, but will choose in preference to a cheaper, lower rate. So can you explain that for us? I mean, because I think this is something that more people need to understand, that we don't need to compete on cost. What we really should be doing is compete on value. And if someone's better than you, then they're better than you. But if someone's cheaper than you, that doesn't necessarily matter, does it?
No, no. And it's for ourselves. You know, we've had quite a few BRC sites that have come on board with ourselves, and we are more expensive. You know, we've had some that have come from a national competitor, and they've given us the invoice and said, "Can you match that?" And me and my dad have looked at it and gone, "We've got pubs on more than that. Not a chance. You know, ours is triple the price." And they've looked and gone, "Well, the MD's not happy," and we're totally happy then to walk away and go, "That's absolutely fine. We're not the company for you." But funny enough, 8 months then down the line, they give us a call and go, "We've made that decision. We want to come on board with you." So it's never about, we don't undervalue, you know, we're not the most expensive, we're not the cheapest, but we're happy we're very competitive, but we know exactly, like you said, we know what service that we can provide, as opposed to saving a company X amount per annum on the pest management. You know, we like to work alongside companies that think of us and know our service of what it's worth, as we need this company in, we need to pass our accreditation. We failed, you know, we're with this company. These are £1,200 dearer. And each time that these companies have swapped, they've all turned around to us and said, "Can't believe it. No non-conformances. Audit is full of praise. Thank you so much. We wish we'd done it sooner."
So how do you communicate what good looks like then? Because obviously it's obvious when you've got your foot in the door and you've got your boots on the ground, and after the first, you know, initial setup and that first audit, it all makes sense. But of course, that is a long way down the road from that initial conversation. So how do you, when you're talking to your client for the first time, how do you communicate what good looks like? What is value to them? What's you know, not to give away company secrets, but how do you communicate that element to them in a conversation?
Do you mean after we've set up or prior
to? No. Prior
Before.
To setting up, when you've had that first phone call with them and they say, "God, you're X amount more expensive," and you say, "Yes, we are, and this is why." And so what is the why that you give them on the phone that's so compelling for them to take that risk? Because it is a risk.
I think when they come and meet us in person as well, you know, I think when we can actually sit down, or one, I think telephone manner is a huge thing, of how you answer the telephone, how you communicate first of all. We always like people to see who they're dealing with, the face of the company, you know, our technicians. So on our website, you know, we're not just the pest management company. It's got a vehicle of an AI van on that anyone can do, or a little advert. There's real life pictures of us, but then we go there, and I guess it's pride in our, I guess the clients, it's not, you know, they see us, they know how much it means to us. They actually know the dedication that we're willing to put into that site. You know, we recently took a site over in Burnley, not far from ourselves here, and it's taken about 13 months to get it. And they've had an issue, it's been on, it's been off. they know how much effort we have done the proofing work, put the monitors in. We've done everything for them and delivered that. But it's, I guess they hear it in our voice. They see it with, we're not just your average, I take it to heart if one of my client sites has a pest infestation, because I look and go, why is that going on? There's some companies out there that will drive past that site and they're not bothered if that site's got rats. I'm different. I don't want any site to have issues. I guess it's when they sit down and talk to us, basically. We love to have that initial meeting and say, can we come and meet you and see what we can provide? And I guess when they meet us in person and we run through things and hear where their concerns is and where it's going wrong, and where we can deliver, I guess that's where it comes into context then.
So, off the back of that, Mark asks an interesting question, because of course, if anyone follows Mark Porter on socials, you know that Mark is a very avid user of social media, and he uses it to generate a lot of work. However, you are operating in a slightly different field to Mark here, aren't you? You're aiming for a very different clientele. So with that, how important is that social media aspect in terms of first contact with these sites? Is it important, or actually are you a lot more, as you mentioned before, it's down to you to go and make those contacts, those networks? How does it work in your sphere?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge. Social media, we continuously upload real life work. A bit, I follow Mark, and I like what Mark does as well. Real life proofing. This is how we service fly killers. This is how we leave sites. This is what we do. And I guess when anyone can go on, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, we recently joined TikTok. When people can see what that company is actually about and what they're doing. I mean, there's so many clients that turn around to us and say, we saw what you've done on Facebook at that. Can we get this in? Can we get this in? I think it's massive, and that's why, hence how we built the business in the first place was via social media. I think it's a huge, because we do our research on clients. Clients ring us. I look at what they're like on Companies House, what their accounts are like, check the company's not dissolved, so we want stability. So then when a client can do that to ourselves, and then, on the email, emails for ourselves, we've got the attachments of our social media logos, our Google, so people could go on and read the reviews and see. I think it's massive. I really do.
It's the social governance side, isn't it? You're not going to maybe not get the direct sale from the Facebook post or the TikTok post or the Instagram post. It's exactly as you said in it, Jacob, when they're looking and they think, these people for us, they're not going to remember that they've seen you on Facebook, but if it's there, they can think, look at it. And if they go on Facebook and they see these reviews and these photos and everything, or they see you in laid over the top of your van like a slob, they might think, oh, that's not quite the ones for us. But it's that it's the creation of that image, isn't it, that you can continue as well.
Yeah.
I think the thing that a lot of people miss when they are doing their socials and the rest of it is when you originally do your socials, you're writing a post, and in your head, you've got in your head, I'm aiming this post at, I want to aim at the marketing, the executive director of this big company. So I'm going to write my post aiming at them. Completely and conveniently forgetting that those people are not checking their socials in the middle of the day. When are they checking their socials? They're checking them at night, probably when they're sat on the dunny having a bit of a crap. That is when they are actually most engaged with their socials. And what do you think their algorithm's putting up there? Actually, the people that you're probably talking to more than anything else is going to be the rest of their family, who's going to say, oh, I saw an interesting thing today about a pest control company that just does audited sites. Have you heard of them? No, I haven't, dear. Tell me more about it. And then pass the spuds. That's the thing. I don't think a lot of the time when we're doing socials, we are in the right mindset. We've got an opinion of who we're aiming it at, and ultimately that's who we get to. But the reality is it probably goes through, a very alternative route before it ever reaches that person. And maybe we need to think about that a bit more.
Well, you don't need to give the secret sauce away, as it were, but how do you go about even stepping foot inside the door of a, say it's a, I don't know, say it's a Nestle factory, just, it's not going to be, but say it is. You've got Nestle down the road.
Run. They can't catch you if you're going fast enough. You just sort of straight through the front door. Right.
Yeah. How are you even going to get in the front door? How it's not like you're going to knock on the door and go into the reception. Well, we've got our ways of doing things, but everybody's different. But you're not going to walk into the reception and go, can I see the managing director, please? They're going to go, oh, don't be stupid. So how'd you start? How'd you go about it for people? Just a little bit.
I guess, obviously, these sites have huge security barriers. So to be honest, if you can breach the security barrier and say pest control, and the security guard lets you in, then you're in, and then you've got your because time again, we've been to securities. Can we pop in? No, you can't leave your card. That card's not going anywhere. So there has been sites where we've turned up intercom, pest control, straight through. Who can we have a chat to? Never go to a site on a rainy day because it's pissing out down outside. They don't want to open the door. That could be your one chance to ever get in through that door. And if you knacker it up on that day, so pick a good day on weather, look for a nice sunny day where doors are open, people are smiling. Always look presentable, clean work vehicles. We love our clean work vehicles. I guess for us, there's so many people that see our vans continuously. If we put up on a brand new site with a van that's dented and it's filthy, they're not going to trust us to come in. Always
Trotter's pest control.
So I literally just had the most ridiculous intrusive thought there, which is probably the best tool to get into these sites is an ice cream van. Like literally just drive in, boop, 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 and then when everyone comes out, be like, here's an ice cream, but also, have you thought about rats?
Always go in there smiling. We're always in there smiling. Who can we speak to, please? Is it possible to get the contact details? Do the research prior. LinkedIn's a good one. Can we is there a name? Say for instance, you've had a look and who the technical director is and her name's Liz. Is it possible we can speak to Liz, please? Liz comes down. There's your introduction.
I was about to say, we don't talk very much about LinkedIn. Usually when we're talking about socials, we're talking about Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. But there is that social network, which is LinkedIn. So how important is that? I mean, realistically speaking, when you are making these connections, do you reach out on LinkedIn, or is it purely sort of like an observational tool?
Yeah, I continuously message people on LinkedIn, and I don't get so much back, if I'm being honest, but they can then point you in the right direction of, here's the email. We've had quite a few that have said, I'm not in charge of that, however this is, or come to site with that. But for me, LinkedIn is great because you can see who you need to talk to at that site. It says technical advisor, technical officer, health and safety, facilities officer. So you already know that first name term, and then you're in the site. Can we speak to John, please? So I guess LinkedIn's brilliant. I never thought that I'd be on LinkedIn, and then I joined it and I was like, wow, this is fantastic to interact with people. And when we was at the UK Pest Awards last year, I had quite a number of people coming up to us that I'd never spoken to in my life and said, you're that company that line all them boxes up perfectly straight, aren't you? Your marketing is fantastic. And I was like, brilliant. And so it does work. It does work there. Can I have just 2 seconds? I'll just use the washroom really quick. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll
of course.
I mean, you of course do audited sites and bits and bobs with that as well. What's your take on this? And I'm sure Neil's going to be, because he always is, lurking in the background.
He's lurking.
He's lurking, always lurking. So yeah, what's your take on this?
I think that they're definitely worth doing, absolutely. But I completely agree with Jacob that mustn't sell yourself short monetarily, because you're guaranteed that the QA person is going to be, oh, you couldn't just pop in before our audit, could you, and just check over everything once? And you think to yourself, oh, well, we didn't quote for that. You've got 12 visits a year or 8 visits a year, and now suddenly you want an extra visit for like 6 hours to check everything through. So it is important that you do allow yourself enough time and enough money in it, because ultimately there has to be the money in it, because there's nothing worse than going around a site and thinking, shit, I've got to run around because it hasn't been priced correctly. And I always say to our chaps as well, it doesn't matter how long it takes, just fucking do it right. Because if we lose the contract because somebody's gone in and quoted less, that's fine. That's life. In fact, that's just happened to us. But if we lose the contract because a competitor's gone in and said, we found this shitty bait box in the back of XYZ, which is then open the floodgates, then that's a completely different story. So, you're always going to lose one. I mean, we've just lost one now, and the QA team are like, we don't want you to go. You've been absolutely fantastic. We kicked the last company out. Cut a long story short, we had it and we lost it to a national who lied about our service. 2 years later, we got it back because they were so shit. 14 years later, we've now lost it again and it goes, and it's not through bad service or anything. It's just that's the cycle of that particular site. But had we lost it because somebody gone in and gone, no, look at that bait box, or this cost sheet wasn't there, or that opens, like Jacob says, get that right, and they can't open the gate.
But very quickly, as a follow-up to that, you say, should I go there? They've not quoted for it. Is that a fault of theirs for the impropriety of it, or is that a fault of yours for not, you've been, old enough and grey enough now? You should know that they're going to ask this, and so you should build it, factor into the quote, into the work.
I think Jacob missed what I said was, there's nothing worse than when your client phones up and says, we got an audit next week. You couldn't just pop around and have a quick check over for us. You've been the week before, but they want a bit of an extra one, but you haven't allowed for that sort of shit factor in your pricing. Do you get that at all?
Now and again, yeah, it would. I mean, it's a tough one there, because you want to keep the client sweet, don't you? You don't want him saying, "Oh, well, actually, they didn't bother coming in for that." So I guess that comes down to the workload for us as well, of having that time to actually, I'll pop in there, I'll come and make sure everything's in good order. So I would pop in and go and have a look, make sure the EFKs are all pristine, they're all dated, quick look over the folder. But factoring it in, I mean, we're quite lucky, our coverage of the Northwest, we're not traveling to I think the furthest away for our site is about 55 minutes. So before we've seen before that companies are traveling 2.5 hours to get to an audited site. We have to look at it geographically for stuff like that a client says, can you just pop in? We need to just have a chat. Can you give me some advice with this? And I think I don't mind doing that then. As long as then they don't expect it,
Take the piss,
yeah.
So here's a hard question for you. And I'm not saying this would happen with any of your technicians, but for everybody else. So you go in, you're going to go and do, because I've done it with in a previous life, not in the current, but part of being a rent-a-kill supervisor was doing QA checks. So you go in and you got your QA checklist, and you're going around and you find 20 out of 40 bait boxes that are absolutely, they're maggot ridden. They got, SPI larvae crawling through them. This isn't dated, that isn't dated. How are you going to approach your technician?
It's never happened, and I'd like to say
it's a challenge.
Or, how we would have to pull them in for a disciplinary,
straight away.
Yeah, we would want to chat about that, if I'm being honest, because we pay the guys good wages. They understand that the clients pay wages, pay our wages, and you've got to be harsh sometimes in business. It is our business out there. When this is the difficulty sometimes of not being out servicing yourself, because then, and that's where the trust, like back to one of the questions at the front there, at the start of the show is, do you trust them? But yeah, if I found that, then 100% we would have to bring the guy in and sit down. Obviously, I would take photos and ask, can you explain this? What is going on? Do you like that site? Do you need removing from that site? Is there a problem with that site? But then work with them and say, is your home life right? We would obviously want answers. We do see that time and time again from different companies, but we've never went, and I'm not just on the show to say, I'm going to make Atlas sound really good. If I had been into one and we'd sacked someone from that, then I would be totally honest and say, we've done that before. We found this guy and he's done this, he's done that. We got rid of him. Touch wood, it's never happened. Don't get me wrong. I don't expect, we're not robots, and I don't expect robotic work, and mistakes or sometimes can happen. I've seen it before when I've gone in and I've found one EFK that they forgot to date the label. I'm not going to go all out and say, you've not dated that label. Obviously, I've rectified it there and then. And I've said, the importance of dating that label. We don't want to be pulled up. Luckily, obviously, it's documented within the site file and the portal, etc. So had the client documented, I don't expect anyone to be perfect in this world.
I'm sorry, Jacob. Was that me then, or I think you went a little bit Dalek-y on this end?
Yeah, it was Jacob, but it's fine.
Oh, it's Jacob. Jacob, yeah. Could you just repeat that again for us? Just because I think what you were saying was quite important there, but we literally lost the last 15 seconds of what you just said.
Yeah. So, am I all right now? Is it all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
very good.
I don't expect robotic work, and I understand that no one is perfect in this life, I've seen it before when I've been into site and an EFK unit, it wasn't dated. For me, I've looked at that and I'm like, oh, it's not been dated. Luckily, it's documented within the site file, etc., the portal. So, had the client have seen that, then obviously we would have said, well, it is documented. But I've then expressed the importance of it has to be done. But that for me, there's no way that's a disciplinary. But if you, like you said, that you went in and all of that was missed, then 100% we would have to have a chat, because it's obviously there's something not working there, and we can't afford to lose big accounts like that.
No, you can't. And sorry, you go.
I was going to say, on the same hand, then. So you're going around. You've been invited in by a prospective client, and you're walking around now, and you're having a look at the other company's work, and you pop open a box, and there's a manky contract block in there that's riddled with textile. It was woolly bears. It's all gone to dust. You picked it up, and there's a great big plume of blue dust goes in the air. Do you point it out, or do you just go, oh, I don't think you should be seeing that.
Hands up, I would point it out. But what we always do to our clients, we always go in there and we say, look, if you are getting a fantastic service, we will tell you that you're getting a fantastic service. We will never make things up, highlight stuff that's no irrelevance to try and win an account. However, if it is poor servicing, then obviously we want to win work. We want these companies on board with ourselves. So, but we would also see what the rest of the monitor's like, because if one has been genuinely hidden in a boiler room that technician has never been shown before, some national companies, they have different techs that obviously service the sites and they're not routinely in that. So it's about allowances as well, isn't it? Of going there and saying, well, hold on, the rest of the site was actually pristine. Do you really want to focus on that one monitor that's absolutely appalling? Or do you want to then actually sit down with the client and say, well, this is how we can, because sometimes the client then can go against you, because they might have built that rapport up and that relationship with that company for 12, 13 years.
Ultimately, they could take, if you're not careful, they can take offense because it's their choice that they've chosen that company. So in a way, if you go in too heavily on that point, it actually sort of reflects on the customer and they'll be like, who the hell's he telling me that I didn't choose the right pest control company?
Yeah.
So it is a bit of a balance, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It goes back to the earlier statement of what does good look like, and we in the industry have a fairly good idea of what good looks like, because sometimes we achieve it, and other times you walk away from a site being like, I did not hit it that time. It was not it. But with that, we have a good idea. We know what those highs and lows are. For anyone outside the industry, it's a complete anathema. How do you know? Where do you look for that information? You go on the internet. There's 1,000 conflicting different schools of thought on it. So again, how do we convey that sort of like, especially when you see bad practice, how do you tell them that that's not good? And when all you've got to say is just trust me, mate, bro science.
Delicately.
Bro.
Delicately.
Delicately.
Is another little question. So we're quite lucky in that some of the QAs we deal with are quite strong characters. And when we get an auditor that perhaps it has a little bit of what we could call mission creep, and they make something up off the top of their head that they think looks absolutely great. How do you deal with that when it's not in the spec, but they've suddenly decided that the tether on a bait box should be no longer than 10 centimeters or something ridiculous like that, because they plucked it out of some thin mythical unicorn pest control company somewhere? How do you deal with that?
I speak to the client and let them know we're the experts in our field here. It's never been pulled before. The auditors are there to find something. That's their job. They are going to pinpoint something. We've had it before where they've gone in, not for the wires, but made, where's this in the document? And we're like, and the clients then rung us up and said, oh, the auditors requested that. I'm like, never had that in 15 years, 12 years. Okay, no problem. I'll go and make you that document. Give me half an hour. There's your document. So I never argue or say, well, that is factually incorrect. I'm stating here what we went when, if we went in and they said about the tethers and it got highlighted, and then I would look and go, well, hold on. What happens if that same audit is going to return next year? What would I do? I'd probably action it so he can't pick us up on it again, but it's, we speak to him. I mean, they're always going to find something. They're always going to find something. And I guess it's rectifying it. We've had accounts before and clients, then, the BRC auditors have gone in and said, where's this? What's this? And everything is pristine. It's passed with flying colours before. And then before we know it, we've wrote a new document up or a new piece of what they requested for this one person. And then we've implemented that through all of our sites. And then we've gone to our other sites and gone, we've now put this in the folder. This is that. And they've looked and gone, wow. So we prepare ourselves in advance, if you get me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That is.
I'd rather dig my heels in and just say you're a fucking freak. I'm not doing it.
What you've just described there is something that I used to teach, which is a really useful tool. It's actually a root cause analysis tool. And most people assume root cause analysis is trending, looking backwards. So you look at things like the fishbone or the 5 whys, and you're trying to determine a problem that has occurred on that site. But not many people know there are predictive root cause analysis tools. And what you've just described there is called failure mode and effect analysis, which is where you actually take you list all of the things that could go wrong, the likelihood of it happening and the severity of it then occurring, give that a ranking, and then those are the things that you tick off. And if you do that across all your sites and say, right, these are the things predictively that might go wrong, and then you apply them to sister sites which have the same setup and the same rest of it, you can save yourself a huge amount of time by predicting problems rather than reacting to problems and measuring them. That's a really, I think that's a really powerful tool that not a lot of people necessarily are aware of, and you just innately doing that at that point.
I mean, it used to be a headache. We've got one client and they sit behind the desk and they don't do much, and they email when they tap away, can you do this? Can you do this? We want this now. And when they first did that to us, I was like, Dad, I can't believe it. They're asking for this, they're doing that. And exactly like you've just said there, Alex, you know, it's then put us in good stead, because then, like you said, the other sites have got it. And then one of the other sites has then said, oh, we've been asked about this. And we've gone, it's in the folder, this section there. So it prepares. And it's like my dad says, you just build in an armory of even more information and more documentation that makes us 10 times better than the other company that was in there in the first place.
Well, like they say, isn't it? You don't learn anything when everything goes right. You only learn when something goes wrong. And it's true. My son keeps saying that to me. He's like, Dad, calm down. Just calm down. You know, we can learn from this. And I'm like, like, calm down, Dad. Calm down. We can learn from this. It's fine.
It's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity.
Yeah. But you take it so personally, don't you? With not necessarily that, but some things you think when an auditor finds something wrong, or they think they found something wrong, you're like,
So weirdly enough, we used to find that all the time. So when we were doing audits of other people's sites, and in fact, the best way I found to get around it is we would work in a team. So I would send someone out to go and do the audit, and then they'll bring it back. And then it would be me in the office would be the one that signed it off and basically put my name on it. You know, I'd review the document, but I'd sign it. And that allowed the auditor on the site to say, hey, I made these observations, but it was actually my boss who sort of like is dropping the ban hammer on there. So it allowed them to sort of like have a little bit of wiggle room, actually. I could sit in the office and play the hard ass and be like, well, I don't care, but you know, these are the things you have to do. And it actually it allowed the client to vent and fuss, but not at the person who had done the audit, you know, at this mythical goblin that was sat in the office somewhere. He's the asshole, blame him. I don't care, I'm not going to see them. It's fine. But it was quite an interesting like psychological quirk.
I was going to say we've got about 15 minutes left, so I was going to ask 2 basic questions. First one is, why Atlas?
The Greek god held the world above his shoulders. I'm not huge into Greek mythology, but I didn't want to call it my name, not because I've got a dodgy surname, but I see a lot of other companies, they do it this surname. So I wanted something that's going to stand out. Back in the day, there used to be the old... I remember my dad used to say there used to be taxi firms, AA taxis, AAA taxis, AA star taxis. So I don't believe, obviously, the Google doesn't pick the A's up or alphabetical order.
Yellow Pages did.
Yeah, but I wanted something that begin. But it was just something that was meaningful for me. You know, like in my office here, there's a picture of Atlas Greek god, and it's something a bit different. You know, I didn't obviously realise that when we started ours until registering at Company's House, there is actually an Atlas Environmental Solutions based in Warrington, and there is also an Atlas FM. We've only had it once before, where someone said we went to a site and we pulled out of there. We didn't want to work for her, if I'm being totally honest. She was an absolute nightmare, and that was actually a 12 grand account we turned down. So we are quite happy to walk away if our client's not suited for us. But she turned around to us and said, "Oh yeah, I've worked with you guys before. I know Atlas very well." And she was on about Atlas FM, but that's not ourselves. We're Atlas Environmental Services.
And the other thing is, where's Atlas going now then?
Up. Continuous growth. I'm 37. You know, I've got my son. I'd like my stepson to get involved, but he absolutely hates wasps. And when bees come out every single year, he turns around and shouts, "They're back, they're back." And he's 14 and he can't stand them. But I asked my son, "What do you want to do?" And he says, "Atlas, Atlas." So, you know, I'm here to stay. I love every single day. I'm very grateful for what I've achieved. You know, and put the graft in. You know, it's been great. It's been kind to us. We got our own office. Getting an own office was fantastic for ourselves. So just reflect on this because you know, about 4 years I operated out a garage in my home. My garage was my stores and my office. I had a key safe outside, and the technicians used to come to my garage. And if I had a day off or if I was on holiday, the garage door would go up, and I think, and getting the office space was huge for ourselves. The exposure was brilliant, but yeah, we're only going up.
So that's one good thing, getting your office. What's the worst mistake you've made?
Coming on this podcast.
The worst mistake. Probably arguing with my dad when we first set up, really. He had his opinions, I had mine, and there were a few heated, not bad discussions. My dad's my best mate in life, but a bit of, you know, my dad saying, "Well, do you want me to just jack it in with you?" You know, and when I reflect on that time, I felt bad about that because I'm like, "You're not doing enough, you're not doing this, we need to do this." So that's probably the worst mistake that we've done. But if you ask me, if my dad was sat here tonight, my dad would probably tell, you know, we've not had a disagreement in over 6 years. We don't argue. So that's not a bad mistake, really. Everything's pretty good for ourselves.
6 years. I couldn't go six. We don't go 6 days, me and Ryan, without arguing about something.
And I was looking at earlier on about one of the mistakes, probably not servicing the air freshener unit in the office. Someone put, "Is he gone to service the air freshener unit?" Because we also do washrooms as well. I found that comment quite humorous, to be honest, because I think he's heard the beeps of it going.
Oh, is that what it was? I thought it was a door opening.
No, it's the automatic air freshener. And yeah, so yeah, that's a funny one, that.
Steve said my brother used to get sacked by my dad at least once a week.
Yeah, me and my old man used to, we'd either get on like a house on fire, or we'd get on like someone was trying to set a house on fire. We were, you know, a well-oiled machine, but it was just very much dependent on what kind of machine you're referring to at that point. But I loved it. I loved working with Dad. I miss it immensely, I have to say, now that he's retired and I've moved on to other things. By far and away, one of the best things I ever done was just be able to work side by side with my old man. Nothing beats it. Yeah.
I keep continually getting told I don't listen. It's just like, no, it's not gonna, we're not gonna, no, we're going to do it this way.
That very much sounds like a you problem, you.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, it's getting there. But I do listen to him. So do you take your son out with you at all?
Well, to be honest, my son lives in North Yorkshire, so I only have my son on alternate weekends, unfortunately.
Okay.
So that's a bit difficult. He's coming up 13, so I'm hoping in a few years' time, where they can make more of a decision what they want to do at school, where they want to live, etc. So that's a bit of a tough one. I mean, I've got a wonderful family. I've got my wife and his stepson that lives with us, but my kids don't live with me, unfortunately. But,
do you think though that young people, if they're not sort of brought up with pest control, do you think that it's not something that many younger people would want to go into?
It's a very fascinating job. I mean, it's like my dad always says, we kind of, your typical rat man that was going around and putting dirty overalls or dungarees on, and we kind of brought it up to a trendy kind of industry and an image. We've got smart uniforms, smart work vehicles, smart equipment. The people see us on site, and you look at an electrician and people go, oh, look at that. The amount of people that turn around to me in sites and gone, how do I get into your role? How do I do that? But a huge one is obviously my kids are on TikTok and they're not on Facebook. So they never used to see everything that I'd put on other, Instagram and stuff. But now they're on TikTok. It's opened their eyes. They're like, wow, have you been here? You've been there. You've done this. And I think, I think that they can actually see more, especially my son and my stepson, of what we actually do day in, day out. So yeah, it's a huge one, that.
Cool. Yeah. Alex, have you got any closing?
I don't know. Just the one that I always like, just to turn the tables for the last sort of like couple of minutes, which is, do you have a question for us? You've listened to the podcast before. You're aware. You've if you wanted to ask a question, not just necessarily of us, but of the industry in general, turn the tables. Is there something that you want to know?
Well, I mean, we had a great conversation. Rob Simpson from Kiljohn come to see us on. It was yesterday, and delivered a wonderful hamper. And I always ask, how do you think the industry is as a general? Is it phasing out, or is it on the boom? Because from our point of view, it's only going up. But then I don't get involved too much on the British Pest Control Group on Facebook. But then I see a lot of negative stuff on there, and so. How do you guys think the industry is in general? Is it happy, or is it heading in the right way with crew, the legislations, or do you think there's too much tightening up on the legislation side?
You want to go first, Hugh, or shall I?
Well, I might be here till tomorrow, to be honest.
I'll give my very quick overview. I mean, so there's a lot of very good market research that comes out as to the state of the industry. So if you want to look at it at a very high level, sort of like outsider to in view, it's a fantastic industry to be investing in at the moment. There is a lot of people pushing to invest in the industry because it repeatedly shows year on year, annual growth rates. It is a growing industry. It is an industry which is having more and more research and development being put into it, although you may not see it from the inside. And so actually, yes, it's a lucrative industry that is very attractive to investors, which is what we are seeing at the moment. Conversely, when you talk about the tightening up of legislation, restrictions and things like that, yeah, obviously things change, but things have always changed. We lost strychnine, we lost sort of like zinc phosphide. Did it kill the industry? Nope. Made it more difficult. We changed, we adapted, we overcame. There will always be three things in life: death, taxes, and pests. We will always have an industry. We will always have pests that need to be controlled. How that happens will change radically, I have no doubt, over the next 5 to 10 years. But if you are smart and you can play the system, there will be a job for life. What it looks like, who knows? But there will always be work in a growing industry. Carve that niche, find that opportunity. I think the world's our oyster, so long as we have the attitude to match it. And that's my thought.
Fantastic.
I think with the way that AI is going, that blue collar workers or physical labor or physical jobs will become more important than other types of work that could probably be easily taken over by AI. Solicitors, accountants, lots of receptionist work, things like that are going to be just wiped out by AI. And I think as long as people are prepared to keep up with technology and keep up with the industry by doing their CPD points and showing an interest in everything that's going on, rather than going like I used to, hands in the air. I used to, back when we used to use Lindane, you know, that was the good old days. Yeah, well, it may have been, but they've gone now. So let's get on and look forward. We have no choice. We've got a good industry. Just keep up with the times. Keep up to date with things, and I'm sure you'll do well. Really, I think the industry's in a strong position. I think we need to be very careful of the fluffy bunny brigade, and the way that people are the Disneyfication of pests, and particularly with some particular political parties, the way that they might be looking at pest control and pests. I think we need to be very careful of that. But if it's all handled in the right way, then I'm sure we'll be absolutely fine.
Fantastic.
We'll still have rats threatening critical infrastructure. We're just going to have to pivot on how potentially that we approach those situations. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be an issue. And to be fair, there always comes a point that even with the fluffiest of bunny brigades, do you have to deal with a rat in a hospital, for example? You can love nature as much as you like. If that little furry fucker's in the hospital waiting room, you're going to have to do something about it. It might be a roaring train and like brooms and harsh language, but it will be there, won't it? And the more difficult a job becomes, I think we've said this time and time again, the more difficult something is, the greater the premium you can charge on that job. So there we go.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we've got the last 3 questions, haven't we?
We have. Do you want to
have you enjoyed? So every time, every episode, we ask 3 basic questions at the end. And the first one is, have you actually enjoyed your time on the podcast?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And I'm not just saying that. It's been fantastic. And thank you very much for having me on. An absolute pleasure.
Welcome.
It goes so much faster than you think, doesn't it?
It's flown.
You look at the time and you're like, right, we're going to bring the guests on now. It's 10 minutes in, and then you look at it, it's 35 minutes in, and then you look up again, you're like, right, I've got 89 seconds left. So it's good fun. Right, so I'll say one. Give us a shameless plug. Tell us about Atlas. Tell the world how we can use your services.
What do you mean there? Go on.
Give us a shameless plug. If you are a BRC client or you're a high specification client, you can look no further than Atlas Environmental. We put in the effort that others don't. So if you want to be top guns in the pest control industry, employ Atlas Environmental. There you go. Something like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, we can do noises.
No worries. Hey, what was that, Alex?
I forgot we can do noises on this. So there we go. Right, so the last one then, after Hugh gave you such a resounding plug there, who would you like to see sat in your seat, us interviewing on an upcoming episode? Who would you like to hear from?
Has Mark been on?
Porter? Yes. Yeah. Been on twice now.
Twice.
Kieran Casper?
Once.
Been on once. This is a good game. I like this.
Get me dad on.
Oh, would love that. We've had a couple.
If you would, you're welcome.
to be fair, we've had a couple of dads on these episodes, dads of pest controllers, and it's always ended in carnage. So always very good fun. So yeah, put him here, put the details there, and you can watch him sort of like embarrass you all mightily, because that's the way of auditing. So.
Thank you.
All right, stay on afterwards for a minute. Don't disappear, and it's good night from me.
Good night for me, and I'll see you next week.
Good night from me. Thank you.
Cheers all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.